So at the start, Rachel Reeves there, the Chancellor, was talking about the pay deal struck with junior doctors. Now, they are due anyway. This deal will go to junior doctors. They will make a decision on whether they accept it. This will cost an additional £9 billion. We apparently don't have this year to give junior doctors a 20% plus rise in their wages. Let's talk to Justin Urquhart-Stewart. He is an economist. He's also chairman of Regionally Investment Platform, and Callum McGoldrick, who's a researcher at the Taxpayers Alliance. Justin, dramatic changes to the public finances announced today. 30th of October is the day for the budget. How likely is it that you and I and everybody watching and listening is going to have to pay even more tax as a result of what Rachel Reeves has talked about today?
Peter, good afternoon. And it's going to be fascinating to see this, because you can look at the same figures, but how would you, it's a bit like looking at a crystal. Depending which angle you're looking through is actually what the colour's going to be. So you could actually reorganise these figures and come up with just about anything. So what you've had today is really, I suppose, people just going through the numbers, picking holes, and funnily enough saying, actually, we haven't got enough money, taxes going up. This is not true. There is actually no shortage of money in this country that's available for investment money. But the issue is all to do with confidence. If you don't have confidence, we don't invest, individuals don't save and invest so much, and more to the point, people externally don't invest. Now, the key thing that she has to try and do now is not to do a trust, but to actually realise or make it so that overseas investment people will see this as a good partner to have, reliable. We don't go bust. So what she's got to do is try and calm the waters. What the Tories have to then do is say, yes, but you're looking at those figures in a different direction. What we saw from the...
Oh, I think Justin is just frozen there. We'll see if we can get him back. Callum McGoldrick is with me, researcher at the Taxpayers Alliance. Callum, someone's lying here, OK? Someone is lying. We're not being told the full story here. Labour say the Conservatives massively overspent, that they spent things they didn't have money for. They knew this was going to be the case. They went into the election with spending plans that didn't add up. The Conservatives say that Labour are lying to us. How could they not have known about this? How could they have not known what the public finances were? The Institute for Fiscal Studies, which is the respected economists, nobody says they're not telling the truth because they are the most respected economists in the country, the Institute for Fiscal Studies. We're going to try to get one of them on later on. The director said that he doesn't think Labour's claim of a previously unknown shortfall in the country's finances is credible. In fact, he said, I don't think it's very credible at all, adding the scale of the problems within the public sector was widely known, and the choice, as ever, is about how well the government of the day wants it to perform. Callum, who's lying? Just in your view, who's lying here?
Well, I think it's fair to say both parties make a lot of promises in the run-up to an election. They're both desperately trying to win as many votes as they can. When you look at Labour's promises, they've put £7 billion towards a new investment fund. They've put £8 billion towards GB Energy. They've put £11 billion towards overseas development aid. They've clearly got a lot of spending plans of their own that they would have known that they would have had to put taxes up anyway. I think this is just a very thinly veiled attempt to try and sneak taxes in without having to blame themselves for their own spending plans.
What do you make of what Jeremy Hunt says, that actually Rachel Reeves needs to be honest here, that he is the person she is blaming and he's actually not to blame? He says, but surely he has some blame in this. If there's a £22 billion shortfall, if taxes are going to have to go up, well, they don't have to go up. They don't have to go up. Labour has made a decision. They're also, Labour is cutting the winter fuel allowance, for example, not for all pensioners, but for many, many, many pensioners. Let me actually just give you the detail on that before I ask Callum this question. So what's going to happen is that she has said, Rachel Reeves has said, she made the difficult decision to scrap winter fuel allowance for some pensioners. Those not in receipt of pension credit or certain other means-tested benefits will no longer receive the winter fuel payment from this year forward. Callum, that's a tricky decision for recently elected with a massive majority, but nonetheless a government to make.
Yeah, it's very important that you mentioned Jeremy Hunt as well. He's a chancellor that in the last government presided over an 80-year high tax burden. They're by no means blame-free. We've got a new bit of research out on the national debt as well that shows that it's rising by £382 million a day. That's another thing that he's at fault for.
OK, let's get a little bit more of what Rachel Reeves and Jeremy Hunt are talking about from the House of Commons.
Overspending by the party opposite. And the Shadow Chancellor mentions the IFS. Well, Paul Johnson from the IFS has just said that it appears that these overspends are genuinely unfunded. The words not of me, but the Independent Institute for Fiscal Studies, which the Shadow Chancellor referenced. The Shadow Chancellor mentioned what happened to the reserve. Well, the reserve has been spent, Shadow Chancellor. It was spent by you 3 times over. That is why we are in a position of a £22 billion in-year gap between spending that was happening and the funding to produce it.
Well, that is a very tense exchange going on right now between Rachel Reeves and Jeremy Hunt. We're going to bring you the, I suppose, highlights, lowlights, whatever it is. Let me know your reaction, especially if you're a pensioner and your winter fuel allowance is going to be cut. 0344 499 1000. Rachel Reeves says the Tories wanted to spend £22 billion they didn't have. She says there was a reserve fund that has been spent 3 times over. We're in massive amount of debt because of what Jeremy Hunt said. He was shaking his head. He says that's rubbish. Callum McGoldrick from the Taxpayers Alliance is still with me. Rachel Reeves there talking about overspending being unfunded. That's something that the Institute for Fiscal Studies has talked about. What's your reaction to that, Callum?
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I think both parties made a lot of promises in the run-up to elections. I think Rachel Reeves also spoke about the Conservative plan to introduce a new qualification at sixth form, which wasn't costed. As far as we can tell, that's true. Labour as well have also made a number of promises that all seem to be unfunded, or at least unfunded without putting taxes up, which they've also promised not to do for the 3 big ones of VAT, income tax and national insurance.
Thank you very much. That's Callum McGoldrick there, researcher at the Taxpayers Alliance.